I'm really looking forward to today's video because I get to do something that I don't think I have ever done in my 26 years of scrapbooking, and that is make a sports themed page. I was never into sports as a kid. My daughter's been into dance, but nothing like soccer, hockey, things like that. So when Stampin' Up came out with this, a wonderful match paper pack, I knew that I just had to get it and make a layout with it. Now, the true challenge is going to be what I will do with the rest of the paper because all I have are 1 day's worth of soccer photos. So I signed Isabella up for soccer a couple summers ago, and she went ahead and tried it, was not a fan, and begged me not to go back. So we ended up not completing the whole session, the whole summer session, because honestly, it was kind of a disorganized gong show, and I wasn't super keen on going back either. So that was our one little foray into soccer, and I do want to tell that story. And when I saw this collection, I was like, oh, that's perfect. Oh, I managed to get 2 sheets of that one in there. Now, there are some that I know I can use for other things, like these numbers. I think those will work great for school photos. I think my daughter's going to have kind of like a track and field day later on this spring, and so I'm hoping I can also use a lot of these patterns for that. And then we might just have to get creative. There is also a coordinating bundle, so stamp set and die set that go along with this paper. I love the kind of sketchy look to them. I think that's really fun, and it does match the sketchiness of the designs that are on the paper as well. Stampin' Up! Always does a great job of including extra dies that are like standalone dies that don't necessarily cut out the stamped images, but they are made to go along with them. There's a little whistle and a pylon and the little trophy here, and of course the grass. You can use little grass borders like that so many different ways. And this one actually doesn't cut out at the bottom. So you could do it on the top of a big section of paper. It only cuts out around the top and the ends. And then you got the little tufts of grass as well. So I'm definitely going to bring those into my project today. A lot of the patterns in this pack have very bold, high contrast patterns. So we are going to start off with white for the base. And I am using the CDT Sketchbook Volume 5 for my overall design today. This is the one on page 22. And as soon as I saw the hexagons, I thought that would be perfect for a soccer layout. All the measurements are given in the cutting guide. And then the picture gives me a really great idea of how to put this together. But I'm going to switch up the photo placement to work with the photos that I have. Now for my hexagons, I'm using this die set from Close to My Heart. They're stitched hexagons, and I'm going to use the biggest one. It's about 4 inches across, and then I'm going to use the next one down as well. Now when it comes to choosing patterns, I did already do that part, and my first step was to pick this pattern. This is my favorite pattern in the pack. I love how this looks. It even has the little sketchiness, little like squiggly sketch lines on it. So I knew I wanted to use that, but it's also the busiest. So I figured this would work really good for the pieces in the sketch that have this extra layer and kind of embellishment on top of them. So I cut them out with the smaller hexagon, and then I'm layering them onto a garden green hexagon. You'll see I have some partial pieces here because I was trying to just use up the piece that I had, and some of these are going to be hanging off the edge. So hopefully it should work out. I can always cut an extra one if I need to, but I figured why waste paper since some of these hexagons are going to be hanging off the edge, and then I'll trim them afterwards. For my other 2 patterns, I knew I wanted to have something in the light green, and I thought this one was a good option because the pattern is not super bold. It's a little bit more calm, and then I really loved these little markings like showing the plays, and I did want some more black in there. I don't think you could go wrong with any of the patterns in here. You could see that kind of sketchy one. I thought it might get lost on the white, so that's why I didn't go for that one. But if you inked the edge, it would help it stand out. There's also this pattern, which I debated, but because I'm using this one, I figured it was just too similar. Let's go ahead and just start laying out the pieces and see where we end up. So I know I want to try and spread out the pattern so I don't end up with the same pattern being next to each other. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind as I go, and also using the sketch to help me figure out placement too. That's too small. So what I want to do with a pattern like this, I want to lay out all my pieces first and then kind of figure out the spacing, and then I'll just pick them up one at a time and stick them down. It's usually the easiest way that I find to get everything sort of balanced and where I want it. I am going to try and line up the top points of these hexagons along the edge of my page, and I think that should help me keep things a little bit straighter. It's easy to get off kilter a little bit. Now at the bottom, I don't need to worry too much because this is going to be hidden by another strip. Okay, I think that is generally the placement that I want. And then I decided to cut this paper and put this at the bottom. I think that should be calm enough. I wanted something that wasn't too busy. I could also swap that out for plain cardstock. And then I'm going to bring in blueberry bushel cardstock. So I did want to add a little bit of color, and in my daughter's photos, the main color is like the blue on her jersey and the pink on her hat. I mean, there's little pops of like pinks and other colors as well, but those are kind of the main two. So I thought it'd be fun to bring in the blue that she's wearing on her jersey. So blueberry bushel was a pretty good match for that. These are just thin little like 1/4 inch strips. And then for my photo placement, I wanted to put these two on this side and then these two over here. And I might overlap a little bit because this one has like a ton of grass in the foreground and I don't really need that much grass showing. So I think I might overlap them kind of like that, play around with how far over I want them to be. I'm just moving everything up here at the bottom because I want more of this bottom to be covered by the hexagons. So I'm just sliding everything up a little bit. And that's why I think it's important to lay everything out first so that you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like before you just start sticking things down. And that way you can make adjustments a little bit easier. Anything that is hanging over the edges, I will just trim that off once I have everything stuck down. For my photo mats, I'm also going to bring in blueberry bushel cardstock. I love this color. It's so pretty. And I think that should work really well. Just add a little bit more of that blue in there and help things pop with all the green and black that we have going on. So I think this is kind of how I want to do it. I do have some opportunities for embellishment, so I can have my little triangle of embellishments. The title is going to go up here, same as on the sketch. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just making sure everything is straight and the way I want it to be, the right placement, the right gaps before I go ahead, stick down my background pieces, and then we can bring in a few more details. I started adhering in the top left corner of the left page, and everything was going pretty good until I got right about this part here going between the two pages, and I had a little bit of trouble getting them lined up so they were at the same height. So I did have to peel off once and just kind of readjust. I line my pages up together so I can try and get it as even as possible. And then for the third one here, I want to make sure I have a little white border along the edge. If you kind of get one off when you're using it to line up all your other pieces, before you know it, all your pieces are kind of wonky. I'm happy with how they all ended up, and then once they were attached, I just flip over my page and use my scissors to trim off the excess. You could use a trimmer, but I find this quick and easy. All right, my photos are in place, and now I want to start working on some embellishing. I don't want it to get too crazy. I want to keep it fairly simple because really the embellishment is the patterns that are going on here. Also, I have my journaling spot, which is going to go in here as a layer on this hexagon. I thought that was a good spot for it, but I want to add some embellishing here, here, and then over here. And then my title is going here. And I figured offsetting my photos like this kind of gives me the perfect little nook to tuck embellishments. Looking at the pieces that I have like some die cut pieces, also some pieces from the pattern paper. I cut that one out. There's this little soccer net, which is super cool. And I was thinking maybe I could use that sort of as a base for a cluster. But I think it's going to be hard for my embellishments to stand out against the background because we have a lot of busyness going on and I feel like it needs something to help ground it. So I went to my stash and I found some star dies, the Star Shaker window from Close to My Heart. And I took just the plain star. I'm not trying to make anything too fancy. I want it to be fairly plain, but I think this could work really nicely, even tucked under a photo a little bit. And then I was trying to decide what color to do. So I tried white, and I think that will work good. It gives me a plain kind of landing spot to put things. But then if I layer over anything else that is black and white, it sort of gets lost. If I want to layer one here, because I'll probably want to do it on every spot, well, the white is going to just disappear into the background. And I had debated inking my edges, but I decided just to go ahead and put them down. I could ink the edges on this and then it would stand out a little bit. And then I thought pink, she has pink in her hat. If I wanted to introduce another color, the pink could work. I'm just not crazy about how this looks. This is bubble bath cardstock. It's fairly close to the pink in her hat, depending on what light you see it in. There's also like a lighter side to it. It could work. I'm not crazy about it. And then I have the Lunar Luster. This is a new specialty paper. And I thought that could work really well. It's a neutral. It's not overly shiny, not like a foil paper or a glitter paper or something like that. But if I tuck it in kind of under here, probably need to go like that or up a little bit higher maybe, something like that. I think that will add a nice little subtle detail to the background that won't compete with everything else that's going on here. So I just need to play with that and kind of figure out where I want everything. Did go ahead and cut a few more out of the Lunar Luster paper. And then I'll have to decide how far under I want this or if I want it sticking out a little bit more. And then it just comes a matter of cutting out some things from the die set and the stamp set and just playing and layering and see what I can come up with. I did think it would be good to have some grass here with this net. So I could do something like this. Maybe I'll just rip it off so I don't have to put it so far under. So kind of like that. And now the die cut ball that's part of this set, it doesn't have a solid white backing. And I'm thinking I'm going to want to back it with white before I put it on here so that it's more solid and kind of stands out against this net. I do also have the embellishments that go with this collection. So these are Wonderful Stars puffy stickers. And we have black and white and a couple of different sizes. So I'll probably layer these on to add a little bit extra around the stars and kind of bring out that star theme a little bit more. I think I probably want to do the jersey as well. And then there is a larger ball. This is the stamped one, and there is a coordinating die for that as well. To do my stamping, I'm going to bring in the new Stampin' Positioner. This is actually going to be in the new May to August catalog if you were waiting to get your hands on it. And I'm using a die cut shape from the More Messages die set. This is meant for sentiments, but it also works great for scrapbooking little wordy bits. And I'm using my tape to stick it down to the base because it's just a little shape and it'll just float around. So just a little bit of tape will hold it in place. It works even better if you don't stick it to the grid paper. And then I use some blueberry bushel ink to stamp my little Let's Go. I had to be careful pulling this shape off of my grid paper, but if you stick it straight to the platform itself, it comes off super easily. I'm going to stamp the jersey now with blueberry bushel ink as well, and it is my preference to use the grid paper to line up my paper. I push it right up against the top, against the little pegs, and then on the left hand side I have the grid to help me get it straight, just in case it moves while I'm stamping. And one thing I do really love about this platform is that it hovers over top. So that means you can see if it's going to line up okay or if it's exactly where you want it before you press down and stamp. I think this is my most favorite feature because I can see exactly what's going to happen before I commit to it. This image did stamp perfectly, so I don't need to double stamp it, but I'm going to use the coordinating die to die cut it on my big shot. I decided after die cutting that I wanted to stamp this number 1 on here. I used black ink this time so it would kind of contrast with the blue. And then while I was doing that, I thought, you know what, there's too much blue in this cluster. So I'm going to try stamping over top of the Let's Go sentiment with black. So I had to get it perfectly aligned. There was a lot of my head being in the way of the camera, so I cut that part out. But I'm going to stamp it twice, and that should give me great solid coverage. I was able to perfectly line it up without having to stamp a new one. Now I'm going to start adhering my clusters. Always start with the biggest piece first, kind of my base, which is the star. And then I'm adding the jersey. The soccer balls, I did go ahead and back them with white. All I did for that was put some glue on the black outline, put it on white cardstock, and then cut it out with my scissors. If you have a circle die the same size as a soccer ball, you could also layer it that way. I did pop up the little let's go, and you can see my pieces have sort of moved over top of my photo. I'm trying to keep this cluster kind of compact and more on top of the photo and the star rather than spreading out onto the pattern paper and getting lost. Now I'm adding those puffy star stickers, doing like a little triangle, and I am going to switch between the white and the black. Basically, whichever color is going to work the best with whatever colors are behind it, that's the one I'm going to use. For my title, I am diving deep into the stash today. This is the varsity alphabet from Close to My Heart, back when they had those really big alphabet sets, but I just had to dig it out. I haven't used it in years, and this is why I hoard stuff, because eventually I find the perfect layout for it, and then that justifies in my head why I'm still keeping that, because I have thought many times of decluttering all the alphabet stamps that I don't use. But man, I'm glad I kept it because it works perfectly on here. I'm stamping this in Blueberry Bushel, and I'm really glad that I used my platform because I had to kind of repress on it about 3 times to get a perfect transfer. And I could only stamp half of it at a time because I didn't have multiple letters. So I did use the C to help me line up the remaining letters, and thankfully it worked really well. I adhered my final cluster on the left side off camera. I did pop up the word goal. I used another one of those shapes from the More Messages die to stamp the word goal on. And I'm so happy with how this came together. I'm glad I didn't add anything else to my clusters because it is a busy page. We have a lot of patterns going on. There's some photos with a lot of people in them. So I think this was good. I wouldn't have wanted to add any more. I did do my journaling on the computer. I kind of just roughly sized it out in a text box and sort of guessed at it, printed it out, and then die cut it with the smaller hexagon. And that fit perfectly over there. Got all my story in about our sort of failed attempt to do soccer. I'm glad I was finally able to scrapbook this story with the perfect collection. If you're ready for some more scrapbooking inspiration, you could check out this video here. Please subscribe and follow along on my scrapbooking journey, and I'll see you again soon with another video.